Hello, and welcome to Dandelion Dollies.
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 Dandelion Dollies. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dandelion Dollies, and today I'm showing you how to make a Waldorf doll's head. The head is one of those things that it's really helpful to have a video to watch to learn how to do it. Most patterns, or all patterns, should come with the instructions on how to make a head, but I just think it's really helpful to see it being done. It might be hard for me to do it one-handed because I'm going to have to hold my phone, so I'm probably just going to tell you what to do, and then I'm going to do it, and then show you what I did, okay? Let's just get right into it. First of all, you are going to want to have wool, head tubing, and a needle on thread. Mine is in there. And a crochet hook. Some people use that for one part, but I don't, so yeah. So first you're going to want to grab some wool. I'm going to do about this size. This will make a smaller head. The more the wool, the bigger the head will be, but I'm going for a smaller head. Also, actually, never mind. So you're just going to want to roll this into a ball. I like to start with, get a smaller piece and really tightly pack that into a ball, and then get some more wool and wrap that around using bigger chunks of wool every time. Okay, so I just finished my next layer, and I just want to show you how firm this is. Like, if I squish it, that's not even really firm enough, but you really have to make sure it's really firm. Okay, so I've almost got the size I want for the head, but I realized I forgot to do something before. I've forgotten to do this first again, so I'm just going to have to I think I'm going to tie this string that you were going to use later for tying the head to tie off the bottom so it doesn't explode out. I tied the string extra long so I'll be able to use it later. Okay, back to the thing that I forgot to do. Excuse the light coming from my sewing machine. I might actually have to turn that off for a second. So what you're going to do is, with this head tubing, you're going to have to sew the top off of this. There's a bunch of ways to seal the top. There's hand sewing, machine sewing, you can tie it in a knot. If you tie it in a knot, it looks kind of bulky when you put the head covering over it. And since this doll's going to be wearing a hat, that's going to be fine. But for dolls with hair, you won't want that. You won't be able to see this if I actually turn the sewing machine on, but you're just going to want to sew a straight line across there. You see, you can't really see what's going on. You can't obviously do this 100% with hand sewing, but machine sewing is just faster, so I prefer to use it on the things that I can. To make a Waldorf doll, you do need to know how to hand sew. Now that we've got that sewn, can start adding more wool to the head again. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I think this is actually a good size for the head. Also, I just want to point out, you do not need this much tubing for one head. I just sewed off the top, and I'm going to cut it where I need it because I don't want to not have enough tubing. So you're just going to want to stuff the ball of wool into the head tubing. Once the head is in the tubing, you're going to cut off where you want the tubing to end. And now I still have enough for one more head. Once the head is all the way up in the tubing, you can kind of squish it around and get it into the right shape that you want. And I'm going to cut off this excess at the top. But make sure that you don't cut the stitches, just the excess fabric, or it's not really fabric, it's tubing. Now for the tying part, I'm actually going to turn to this because I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not exactly sure what order it goes in, so I'm going to be looking at this. I'm going to try to, hopefully you can just pause the video right there if you want to read it, and again right here if you want to read it, but hopefully you think my tutorial is sufficient. Okay, so remember when we tied this string around the bottom of the head because I forgot to do the tubing? Well, that's basically the first step. You just gotta tie this around the bottomish area of the head to make the muff. And I'm actually not sure I left enough for a muff, so I'm just gonna stuff some extra wool up there to make the muff. In my opinion, the muff is one of the hardest strings to tie because it keeps wanting to slip underneath the head. So you might have to settle for it to be a little loose and then tie it tighter later. And also, hack that I do is, even though it's kind of gross, sometimes I like put my toe on it to tie it around. It helps it be tighter. It just is easier. I've seen some people try to use their knee, but it's just the easiest thing to do for me, so yeah. So now you gotta decide which side looks the best, which side you want to be the front. Kind of want this side to be the front. You don't have to worry about the little mohawk thing. You won't be able to see that on the actual doll. So now we're gonna do the eyeline. So I'm gonna see if I can show you. Why is it so dark up here? There we go. So here's Jolie. You can see she has this little like line where her eyes are. I'm not sure if you can see, but that's what we're going to be making now. It's going to be just like the muff, except you're doing it around the face. Also, don't worry about like the color of the string. You won't be able to see that on the doll. And I actually once made a doll where the wool I used was red, and you can't tell on the doll, so it doesn't really matter colors. Going to want to place it, and the reason you would need to know where the front is now is because you don't want the knot to be in the front. So you're going to want to place it and like figure out where you want it to be. Once you have that figured out, you're going to want to turn it over and tie it really tight. All of these knots need to be as tight as you can make them possible, and the head needs to be as firm as you can make it possible. Once you have that done, you can like adjust it by pulling it down if you want it to look a little different. And remember, the line won't be that drastic on the actual doll because we're going to be covering it. Next is the chin line, which is less visible like from the actual doll, but it basically just squishes the head down and makes it look cuter. It gives it little chubby cheeks. The chin line goes around the doll's head like this, so this might be a little hard to show you, with just one hand. But basically you're gonna want to go around the head like that, and then you're gonna tie it. Oops, I accidentally tied it at the back of the head, but you can see that's what it does. It makes the cheeks chubbier. But now I'm gonna have to retie this because I tied it at the back of the head. Now we're gonna cut off. Whoa! Oops, dropped my phone. Oh. Keep dropping my phone. Now we're going to cut off these extra strings. Now it's time for the needle and thread. The thread color really doesn't matter for this. So what you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to sew like little X's across, doing crisscross stitches along these corners so they don't move. Once you've gone over that a few times, as you can see, you're going to want to sew across. Make sure it's the front of the face without the knot, and then sew the other ones down. If you have enough thread left. If you don't, you can just cut it off here and then move to the other side. You don't have to sew down the eyeline, but it just makes it easier to just like sew it down, make it more secure, and then do that side. But make sure you don't do the side that's supposed to be the back. Just don't do that. You'll learn why in a bit. And if you do sew across the eyeline, the stitches, I don't know if you can even see the stitches, they don't have to be that tight together because this step is optional. And if you still have thread left over, I like to go around the chin line, especially the top. This one I like to do even if there isn't string left over. I just like doing that. It's my own personal thing. Also, tip for sewing, I'm going to try to show you this, but when you're sewing, go through the loop of the thread that you sewed. It should straighten out like that, if you can see. And then you're just going to continue your stitch down. This is kind of hard to do with one hand, and I'm worried it's going to make a knot, because normally you use your other hand. It didn't, yay! And that's how you make a knot to tie it off so that the thread doesn't unravel. And do that a few times. It's the equivalent of back stitching. Not back stitching, that's a hand sewing technique. Back tacking on a sewing machine. The next step is kind of difficult to do, and if you're making a doll with a hat like I am, it's not entirely necessary because, I'm going to show you, you're not going to be able to see the back of the head or the sides or anything because the hat's going to be covering it. But I'm going to show you how to do this anyway because it's, if you're making a doll with hair like Maddie or... Okay guys, so I don't know what happened, but I showed you all how to make like the little head cover and everything and the nose, but for some reason I don't know what happened. It just disappeared, so I'm gonna have to show you without actually doing it. So what I was doing was I was deciding which fabric I should choose for the skin tone, and I ultimately decided on the darker one. And then I showed you this pattern, And basically you're just going to want to place this on the fold, cut it out. If you're using a pattern like this, what I used to do is I just like traced the head with a little bit around it, and then just like put that in, you know, just like the head tubing, but I'm going to, like I showed you with this, but let's just say I just use that method because it's just easier to explain. So then I cut it out, and I was telling you all about what is good to do with this pencil or marker, why this marker is good. Basically, it's just a marker that when you draw with it on fabric, it'll disappear within a certain amount of time. After I did that, I just went and sewed it. You can do this with hand sewing. It works well like that, and the other way too. Yeah. And like I said, you don't have to have this fancy pattern. I just like trace the head with a little bit of extra, and just do straight all the way down, and then fold it in half. That's what I used to do, but I just use this because I have it. Also, since I was doing it right on top of the last head that I made, for cutting it out, I had this little extra bit at the end, so I'm just going to show you how to do a nose on this little extra bit. This isn't going to actually make a nose because it's like this because it doesn't have any stuffing underneath it. Basically, you're just going to want to do this, pull the string through, and then do the same in a slightly different place, and just keep doing that around in a circle. You also need to mark a dot in the middle, but I just didn't do that because, you know, I still have the end of the video, so I'll still be able to show you that, but I'm really sad about the fact that that footage was not done. And then I just showed you putting it over the head, and I showed you how the nose worked and everything, and yeah. I don't think there's anything I missed in that section of the video. Oh yeah, also I think when the last video stopped, I said that I was going to pull down the string at the back. I actually didn't end up doing that because I had told you how to do that, I'm pretty sure, and it doesn't really matter, especially since it's going to be covered by the hat, so yeah. If there's anything else I missed, I'll put it in the description, but now to the part that's actually from when I was making the doll. Now what you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to sew that down. Now that that's done, I know it looks a little messy, but we're going to be covering it with either a hat, or if you're going to do hair, that'll be covered by the hair. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're just going to like sew this around and cinch that up. And then you can also sew the bottom up, but I don't think we need to. I'm just going to cut off this excess. So what I do is I just stab the neck. I know it sounds gruesome, but yeah. I just kind of like wrap the thread around like that and pull it tight, and then make a few stitches to hold it in place. And that's it for this video. I'm probably going to post the one for making the face either later today or tomorrow. Because, you know, there's stuff going on this weekend with like Mother's Day and stuff. Happy Mother's Day to any mothers watching and any kids watching. Wish your moms a happy Mother's Day. That's all for now, my dolls, and I hope you stick around. Bye!